Thanks again for staying with ANN7 Prime. My name is Cindy Mabi. Good evening to you. Judgment is reserved in the crucial case heard in the Constitutional Court today, which may have a bigger impact for government's affirmative action and BEE policies. Trade Union Solidarity and the South African Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners Association, or SARIPA, challenged the constitutionality of the Department of Justice appointment policy regarding liquidators. Earlier this year, the Western Cape High Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled in favor of Solidarity. The minister then appealed to the Constitutional Court. Let's take a look at the legal arguments. The Department of Justice says the policy on the appointment of insolvency practitioners promotes transparency and equality, to which Solidarity says the concerned policy is unconstitutional and irrational. And government says appointments of insolvency practitioners must be done according to a master's list, to which the union says a policy quotas as defined in the master's list against Employment Equity Act are unconstitutional. The Department of Justice says the appointment formula favors previously disadvantaged groups, but Solidarity disagrees, saying the country needs a more nuanced approach to appointments based on merit and training.
Then there are a number of requirements before a person can be admitted to the master's list. And these we also see from the explanatory document to the policy. Firstly, everybody on that list must be a suitable person. That's what it says at page 199 of Annexure LGB 3. Secondly, there must be academic qualifications. Thirdly, professional affiliation is required.
The policy requires that in every instance, the master must appoint according to the alphabetical list. It would seem that the master must also at the same time conduct an assessment of the matter and have regard to the complexity and the suitability of the next in line practitioner. But despite having found that the next in line practitioner is not suitable, the policy requires the master to appoint that practitioner.
And you can give us a call, 011-542-2186. Will this take us back in terms of transformation in the workplace? Lucky Tekisho, Transform RSA Deputy President, joins us in studio, and Zanele Luane, Deputy President of Black First, the Land First, and Richard Chamali, Legal Strategist, joins us via Skype. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. Is this potentially a threat to the progress that has been made with regards to changing the complexion of the workplace? I'll start with you, Mr. Tekisho.
No, I don't think it's a threat, because I think it will enhance the Constitution. And perhaps before that, I think the applicants in the case, the Court of Instant Case, have a history of protecting and defending apartheid, you know, and they defend it, and we know, we have been working with them. And there are people that necessarily all the time fight issues that needs to enhance and affirm our people. It's not for the first time that they do this. But in relation to your question, we think that the Constitution is very clear in terms of that, especially when you deal with issues of the Act, the Employment Equity Act. Of course, it has just been mentioned that you have to be suitably qualified and you have to acquire within a reasonable space of time. Now, what it means in essence is that you have to be given an opportunity because you are from a disadvantaged period. Now, you need to learn up until where you are suitably qualified. Now, that act can be used in relation to this circumstance. There's nothing wrong with it. But more than that, we think the Constitution is very clear in terms of redress and dealing with issues of injustice. And we think it's important that this must be used. And we don't understand why don't they want black people and black practitioners to be able to acquire and benefit from all these years that they have been able to be privileged.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long-standing debate that we've had, employment equity, albeit affirmative action versus the merit argument that the most suitable person with the requisite qualifications need to take the position. But as you rightfully say, if you hadn't, as the historically disadvantaged individuals, been given opportunities to even have some semblance of a career and upward mobility, then we're perpetuating the status quo. What is your view, Zadel?
I think as part of this conversation, it's quite important for us to look at Solidarity, the union, and how it continues to represent minority interest of a white Afrikaner group in society. I think we must be very clear about that. And we must also be very clear on how white organizations such as Solidarity constantly run to the Constitution to perpetuate their views that are anti the transformation agenda to build a society that is black, because South Africa is first and foremost a black country. So, for example, we would hear from the media that when the president, for example, would exercise his rights, his constitutional duties, he gets criticized for that, right? When a movement such as the one I belong to engages in protest action, we get called out on that and being called all kinds of names. But Solidarity here goes to the Constitution, and we know that the Constitution still remains one of the key documents in society that have been a big barrier in terms of the progress of our own people in our own country. So Solidarity is running to the Constitution to say they are doing the right thing, but at the bottom of this is to advance an agenda where in top position, particularly in managerial position, they do not want black people to lead in those institutions. Why? Because in the eyes of whiteness, as black people, we should remain general workers. We should remain a mass workforce that takes orders from white supervisors. I think we should interrogate this, and it's about time it must come to an end. We must fight, government must fight and oppose these views and condemn the use of the Constitution of the country, which limits the progress of black people by extreme groups such as Solidarity to advance an agenda, to close doors on black people, to close opportunities on black people, so that our people do not enter into the sphere of contributing quite fruitfully so into all sectors of society.
All right, let's invite Billy Tsotetse. Sorry, Lucky, we'll come back to you, who's calling, who's on the phone. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. What is your perspective with regards to this matter, especially if Solidarity is calling for a more nuanced approach to dealing with transformation that looks at merit and qualification and training? Tsotetse? Hello? All right, we'll get back to the caller. Mr. Chumali is a legal strategist. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Just maybe you can respond to that. Whether, if you look at the preamble of the Constitution that talks about redressing the injustices of the past and especially economic exclusion, are we quite at the stage where we can say the playing fields are leveled? We need to be more nuanced towards an approach that looks at merit and training.
Well, Cindy, certainly we are not at a place where the playing fields are level. However, there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding of what this case is particularly about. And this isn't a case of merit versus access to the work. It's not a case of whether people are saving top spots and top positions. This is merely a policy on how to assign liquidators to liquidated estates and liquidated companies. And the issue here is the way that the assignment in the policy operates is arbitrary and not based on a particular set of fundamental numbers. And even in the Supreme Court of Appeal, when this matter came up, they said, look, there have been previous cases like this before, but by allowing the head, in this case it would be the chief master, to have some discretion, that would solve all the problems in this case would be thrown out. But because they didn't alter that little bit of the policy, and the policy is so rigid that it has to be formulated on an alphabetical list, that's what the issue of today's debate and today's constitutional challenge is.
All right, we'll come back to the technicalities. Just hold on the line, please. We have Billy Tsotetse is back with us, and Felix in Mbombela will come to you next. Tsotetse, good evening to you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
I hear
sir.
you.
Yes, and what's your perspective?
Now, I'm saying that these people, they forget that in terms of the Constitution, affirmative action, it was a standing point based on the legacy of the past. Yes, because the tripled oppressed who were women previously, they were never brought on board. So we are still grappling of getting at least 50% in the working environment, especially the women in South Africa. Now, for them to argue at this point in time, I think they are out of order. I will put it roughly like that, because we have not yet even reached 30% of getting women in top position.
Yeah. All right.
But
Recep,
in terms of the Constitution.
all right. Thank you so much for your call. Felix in Mbombela, good evening to you.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I think for us to be able to level the playing field, there's only one thing that must be done. One thing and one thing only. It is to massively, aggressively educate and skill the previously disadvantaged people. That is the only way out of this mess. Now, you cannot give a job to somebody who does not have the skill to perform the job. Everybody is going to suffer. I had the opportunity of going to school outside this country anyway, and I knew what they did when we got independent. It was massive education and skilling of the people. Now, once you do this, it will be easy for any black person to be able to compete with any white person anywhere, and the constitution will be easily implemented without having to give jobs to people that cannot actually do the job.
All right, Felix, point taken, but I don't know if that argument still holds in the sense that there are scarce skills or we don't have competent black professionals to fill those spots. We'll test that with our panelists. Abel in Mpumalanga, good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. Thank you very much for taking my call. Cindy, in terms of what the Solidarity is actually trying to do, I think if you go more especially into the private sector, the situations are worse there. Because if you look at the management in the private sector, you'll find that in the pyramid, you'll find mostly the white people in front there, and then they would put a ceiling there, whereby the black people will be disadvantaged and then will be exploited completely. Even if that you are meritly actually supposed to be on such positions, but unfortunately, you will never be given that opportunity to express your potential to the fullest.
Yeah. Okay. Now, point taken. Mr. Shamali will come to you now. But Lucky, I know there's ambiguity in how the law is also applied. And previously, where the master in this case would have the discretion as who to appoint, and then historically, you would have to appoint the next in line, whoever had served their time, earned their stripes, etc. But now here comes this master list that says, A, you need to appoint black people, and you know it also defines the skill set from A to B in who qualifies to be appointed as an affirmative action or employment equity candidate. So in your view, is this technically something that Solidarity can argue, or do you think it is a case of, again, trying to reverse the gains of transformation?
No, surely I think it's a case of trying to reverse what we have acquired throughout the years. Because I think I've looked at that case, and I just want to say the way in which I understand that case is that the court really looked at the interest of the creditors in this instance. Now we would know who the creditors are. In this instance, you might find that mostly the creditors are banks. And we know the banks, what type of banks we have. Now the creditors will have to, in the first meeting, will have to appoint the liquidators, the provincial liquidators and all of that. And they always appoint white liquidators. Now, when coming to the issues of the chief master, the chief master initially was be able to then have a discretion to say, no, this is how this thing must work. But they manipulated that process. Hence, the department decided to say, we are going to come up with a policy that will be able to then guide you. Now, their problem is that it makes the chief master a robot. The chief master cannot be able to use discretion anymore because the policy is very clear. It streamlines the chief master to say, this is how you must do it. Now, they have a problem with that. But in the main, the court feels that the creditors must be able to decide, to say, no, who must be able to be the people that will deal with all of this, the assets and all of that, which is really problematic because when you look at the creditors, it's clear that they are white people. But coming to what we have been saying, I think the problem really lies here. The system that is currently working in the judiciary is a system that comes from the apartheid system. It's a system that we inherited as a country. And now this system has assimilated people that we thought were going to help us in terms of ensuring that they will be able to ensure that we comply with the constitution of this country. It's really the people.
Yeah, like we have a call. I don't want to miss Mollo in the Val. Thanks for your
Okay.
patience. Good evening to you and thanks for joining us. What is your comment or question? Hello, Mollo.
Hello, Cindy.
Ache.
How are you, my dear?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
All right. Cindy, just two things, eh?
We're listening.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, Cindy, just two things. I don't understand why we are so tolerant of all the demands of these people. First thing. And it's strange that this thing comes from the people who have spent 40 years making sure that black people are denied access to positions, high positions in government. Cindy, you can go to municipalities which are run by DA. For instance, Midvaal municipality. You look at the top structure there. You know, white African males, when they resign, they are replaced by white African males. And the reason is basically to say, no, scarce skills. It's high time that this becomes treason when people are allowed now to be playing around with scarce skills. Sure lies. It's high time that black people are given the right places in this position.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mola, thank you so much. Of course, they're sounding very agitated with the current situations. And in your view, I mean, if we essentially saying that the chief master has now technically been made dormant in terms of who he can appoint next, and that the natural progression, that flow has been disrupted, and it's a policy issue. What about the broader transformation imperative of ensuring that there's the balance in the reflection of people in the workspace?
I think we must be clear that the ruling party today, which is the African National Congress, is presiding over an untransformed state. What this means is that a lot of key institutions that have legislative power, that make key decisions, such as the judiciary, remain untransformed. We still have key old white judges in the courts who take key decisions on where this country must go. So we must be clear on that and how that remains a hurdle for black people, because we are able today to have solidarity, which is a white extreme union to advance an agenda to oppose transformation in this country. Now, solidarity, if they are serious about transformation and how race is being used as they argue over merit, they must go to My Way, for example. My Way, an insurance company, 100% all-white executive. What do they have to say about that? They have nothing. Why? Because it advances a white agenda and the interest and continues to benefit white people.
Yeah, without singling out My Way, I think, you know, the issue about transformation and the reluctance to implement that in general corporate South Africa is a serious problem. But before you finish your thought, I just want to take another caller, Mbambo in the Eastern Cape. Good evening to you and thanks for calling.
Yes, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good, thank you.
Fine, ma'am. Ma'am, you know what? As we are black people, let's face the reality. Let's face the reality now. Hello? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, let's face the reality. First, the thing that says South African belongs to all who live in it, that is a lie. That were feeded by our parents because they were so scared of white people. We cannot have a country that belongs to everybody. First of all, must be the people, the custodian of the land is us black people. Now we are facing a difficult time in our lifetime. Now white people, they are playing with that constitution. the constitution that was made for white minority to benefit on it. Now we are talking, we're going to speak each and every day. You will be, even now I'm telling you, I'm educated as I was speaking to you. I was with UNISA. But the white people, they are getting employment from coffee tables somewhere with Mr. So-and-so, so employee so-and-so. Even you, I can say even you struggle to make it to get it to the television. But white people are not struggling. Right, we are struggling.
Yes,
now what we are facing a civil war now because people are so tired. And that constitution needs to be changed because the people in the constitution are dead already. Others, they are still fumbling in the government.
All right, Mr. Mbambo, we're going to have to leave it there in the Eastern Cape, saying that enough is enough, as much as Solidarity is arguing that the appointment based on quotas, they quite frankly feel is unconstitutional. But Mr. Chumali, the true test here, I suppose, is the policy of BEE affirmative action and that of transformation. And we have to agree that it was instituted based on the fact that organizations were not expected to empower black people en masse just on their own. Do you think that is necessarily what's going on here?
Well, I think that there's a misreading into what the function of this particular policy is in terms of what BEE aspires to bring. And it's a shame that this case was brought by Solidarity because there are so many connotations with the organization. And it would be interesting to see what the narrative is if it was brought by any other institution. The Act and the Constitution collectively ask three questions. The first is this policy, or does the policy aspire to target an infringed group, which it does? Does the policy then try and rectify the issues with the targeted group? And does it reach a point of equality? And that third aspect is the one that's the big contestation. Because it's being arbitrarily implemented and making the chief master a practical figurehead, the contention is that there is, just by mechanical application, this is not going to achieve equality. It's merely just going to put people in places and not necessarily ensure that the job itself is done.
All right, Richard Chumali, legal strategist, joining us via Skype. We'll wrap it up very briefly. Retekisho in the studio.
I just want to argue that our people does not have the necessary skills in relation to the work that they are supposed to. It's not true that thing. We have ample professionals and practitioners that have that skill to do the job. We don't know where they get this thing that our people does not, because we work with them, we know them, and we know they have skills. And besides, these guys in 1948, when they won, they empowered black, white people. They did that. What they did, they gave them opportunities. These guys failed.
So you're saying we need job reservation? No, well, in the policies that we have.
What I'm saying is they gave them an opportunity to say, no, you can fail, but as you fail, you acquire experience as well. And why can't we do that? Because ultimately, this skill did not come out of heaven, from manna from heaven. It was
I just want to give Zanele the last word very briefly.
I'm saying we can
in 30
do that
seconds.
as well.
Yeah.
White people and their organizations such as the Solidarity are very quick and eager to run to the courts because they know that they have captured the judiciary. Judiciary today, which represents an organ that is anti the radical economic transformation agenda in the country.
Zanele, speaking in general terms there, of course, that's an argument for another day, but Lucky Tekisho, Transform RSA Deputy President, and Zanele Lwane, Deputy President of Black First and Land First, Richard Chumali, legal strategist via Skype, and you at home, thank you, our most valued panelists. Thank you for calling in. We'll take a break. We'll come back just after this.